how long did it take you to heal? You said with your head and your memory.
Um, I re I remember the spiritual aspect more than I remember my healing process.
Okay.
It was really hard to heal from the head injury, and my short-term memory was very frazzled. And I would say it took a good year for it to start coming together, and it was a very hard process. Um, Physically, I wasn't able to sleep, laying down for several months because fractured ribs take a long time to heal. And when you lie down, you can't breathe. And I'd shattered parts of my sternum, so
Oof.
it, it it's not. It's very painful.
I'm so
And I didn't want to acknowledge any neck injuries because they said you're probably going to need surgery. And I simply said, oh no, not I'm not. I actually said those aren't my x-rays. I really just didn't want to acknowledge it. And when I would go to sleep at night, I would look up and there would be this, I'm calling her an angel, but she looked like to me when I would look in later on in life, I would look in books or just statues. She looked like either Mother Mary or Bridget, Goddess Bridget, and she would be in the corner of my room, way up to the ceiling, at like barely fitting in my room and looking at me. And when I was really sad, she would come down and just kiss my forehead.
Hello, everybody. What's up? It's Eric Taylor, Big E Astrology, back with another amazing Knowledge is Love astrology podcast. Today on episode 262, I've got a good one. We're talking about a multiple NDE survivor, a psychic medium, and a resident kinesiology. I am introducing to you today my new friend, Dr. Karen Michelle. How are you today, Karen?
Hi, Eric. I'm well. How are you? Thank you.
I'm so glad to have you on and so excited so much. And, oh, excuse me, my throat. I don't even know where to begin because honestly, I want to start with how we met. It was kind of quite random and through so many other situations through IAMS, which I know that you are a part of, and we'll talk about that. But I was in a group and I met you through a common friend, Sean, who runs the Hawaiian IAMS group. And he's just an amazing soul and another NDE experiencer like us. And
Yes.
your energy just blew me away through the screen and technology. And you actually, and I've never experienced this before, Karen, you actually like zapped my phone. And I knew it was you because it's never happened before. And it was only when you were talking. Plus, I'm a little intuitive myself. And just when you started speaking, your energy just like, it was almost like your words were going straight to my heart. But then you actually affected my technology in my own home and we're like miles apart. So share with our audience, what is that as you know it? And when did you start to realize that, wait a minute, I activate technology around me? And how do you explain it?
Well, and I'm going to say first that it can be difficult to explain.
Yeah.
And what I was told, and I learned this through IANS, but what I was told is that it's one of the after effects that can happen after an NDE, after a near brush with death, after a near death experience, and that with most people, it subsides or completely goes away within about 6 months. However, it's been many years for me, and so as in well over 20 years, and it just well, actually over 30, now that I'm thinking about it, it never went away. And when I first noticed it, I was told, and I played with it, as in walking around, walking through the halls here, even walking up some of the streets. And I thought, well, it looks like it's happening when I walk by with the light going out, and I'm not wearing my watches and banging against things, but the battery's wearing out. Um, but I was told it's all coincidence. It's not you. It happens just randomly. And so I pushed it aside.
Mm.
But, back then, they didn't have cell phones. They didn't have laptops. I'm like really giving away my age here, but they just didn't have all those things.
That's all right. That's all right. We're talking about in the 90s, right? Listen, we're
In
all
the
adults here.
90s and with some of it in the late 80s.
Mm.
And because
Right.
watches were, even if they were just fashion, everybody wore them to see what time it was in the
I
80s.
know. I don't wear a watch anymore, and I miss it. I used to always have my watch. You're right.
And it just didn't work for me. I'd look at my wrist to see what time it was, and it was stopped.
Wow.
That was that. Um,
Now, this happened after an NDE, never prior.
I don't have a prior. I don't have a memory of a prior. I didn't know the term NDE, so I learned that term near death experience later. Um, but having learned that and learning about my history, I had one as a baby. I had another one as a toddler, and then I had two others as an adult, young adult, and then in my 30s.
So four total. Okay, so well, you want to share like the first one as an adult because I'm fascinated, but then I want to really understand what were the spiritual changes after the first NDE as an adult?
The first NDE as an adult was back in 1991,
Okay.
and it was a car accident.
Hmm.
And I actually have no memory of the car accident.
Wow.
And I do have, I can send you pictures of the car if you want. It looks like a little folded piece of tin.
Thank God you survived. Oh my gosh.
I had this sensation of being somebody wrapping their arms around me, and I almost felt armor behind me, but they did feel soft, as in the arms felt very warm. They felt soft. I felt a sensation of almost a feathery sensation around, just kind of around my head and my face, and I just felt like I was being lifted into the sky so fast, and I wanted to just hold on to him back. I wanted to hold on and stay. It felt amazing. And this happened so quickly. It was like a blink of an eye. But on the other hand, it also felt like an eternity in some ways because the memory of being held like that. And I just wanted to stay there. And as I reached the height, wherever that height was, up, 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 I heard this crashing sound and I heard a scream. And later on, I realized that was me, but he dropped me back down into the car and he said, "You need to breathe." He
Hmm.
undid my seatbelt and he had placed me over in the passenger seat because the driver's seat was folded over. There was nothing left there. So when
Now, you were driving alone?
I was driving, oh yeah, I'm so glad I
And
was driving alone.
where were you? Where were you going? Do you know, like
I was going to my first day at work, and it was a
Karen,
new
oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. If you can't laugh at some of the things that
I
happen in life, it's really
Oh my gosh, your first day at work. Whoa.
and, just what do you do about it? And so I remember thinking, "Oh my goodness, I'm gonna be late." I was also where I couldn't breathe. Part of me didn't want to because I was aware of this amazing being, and then all of a sudden, it was almost like he turned into something else, and I think because he wanted me to breathe and stay, and I started panicking. I'm thinking, "Who's in my car? Who's in my
Well,
car?"
when you
And
say he, did you think it was God or Jesus? Did you know, like, who this was, or it was just
I
it was clearly a male voice you heard?
I thought he was an angel. I
Okay.
know he had a large, sword because I remember it going all the way down below the feet. I also remember that he was well over where he could fit through a doorway, height-wise.
Mm,
I mean, I think I'm guessing somewhere between 9 and 11 feet.
wow.
Very, very large, and after that, I can talk about the rest of the whole experience. I did get questioned on how I ended up on that side of the car, how the
Mm,
seatbelt was undone because I had the indents in on me and brakes from where the seatbelt was. So I had been buckled in. I wasn't conscious when they took me out of the car, yet I thought I viewed everything. I remember the paramedics being there. I remember seeing the whole thing, and I was upset that they weren't talking to me. And
wow.
then I remember somebody looking at me saying, "Oh, I think she's conscious." And I thought I said, "Of course I'm conscious."
So were you kinda, like, totally out cold, and then you were, like, remote viewing yourself?
Yes,
Wow.
yes. And I remember blinking, and I was in I thought I blinked, and then I was in the ER, the trauma center.
Right. So they
Uh,
took you to the hospital, and then how long did you remain in the hospital, and were there any complications? Like,
um, I had some fractures, and I had a severe neck injury that I just didn't want to acknowledge. I didn't want to acknowledge anything. And then it kind of freaked me out that I couldn't see any mirrors in because a friend of mine came in and she looked at me and she started crying. And that didn't help. It kind of made me panic because she was just usually tough as nails, and she was somebody I worked with too. We're still very, very close friends. Um, and then she was trying to make me laugh, and I realized I couldn't really inhale because of I'd broken ribs,
wow.
and I just wanted to go home. I don't remember offhand how long I was there.
Mm.
My memory, I because of the head injury, my memory during the course of the whole year following was just not intact.
So
Um,
clearly you suffered a concussion.
oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
So then, in that process of healing, and you spoke about the memory, what were your experiences? And prior to this, were you always kind of spiritually connected, or did this kind of start any spiritual awakening or just spiritual experiences for you?
I think it restarted them because growing up, at some point, I was taught what's normal to say when you're at school or when we're at either family functions or when you're at a friend's house, and what's not normal to say. And so I stuffed it down. And you can stuff it down and kind of, put especially as a child or a teenager, it's a little easier to not acknowledge it and put it away.
So
And
you're saying that because as a child you were aware, or would you see things in the spiritual realm? And
yeah,
did you always have spiritual gifts as a little girl?
I did, but I didn't know that's what they were.
Okay.
My grandfather did, and so when I told him, he met that with understanding and acknowledging that he did too. And that was a bonding experience for us.
Wow.
And he passed away in 1973, and so that was kind of when that closed as far as me having somebody here to bond with.
Yeah.
But I continued to see him.
Mm.
So, and I would see him like I'm looking at you, not somebody with a sheet over them, and not somebody that I could see through, or an orb. I would see him standing and smiling, waving to me, talking to me, and it was literally, it was so nice because at that age I didn't understand death. So I'm seeing people crying and mourning, and so I would sit down and I would cry also because they're crying and it made me sad. But
Oh.
then I would also say, he's right here in the other room. I just saw him. We were talking. And that doesn't go over well.
I was gonna say, did your parents get angry or frustrated with you, or
Yeah,
Karen, don't say that, or
don't say that. Yes, yeah, we'll talk about it later, but don't say that here in front of everyone. We can talk about that later.
so were they also aware of your gifts?
My mom was more aware of it. Um, it was something that with my grandparents in general, other than my grandfather, it was scary to them. My grandmother told me that her mother and her grandmother had that, but she found that scary. That was something that she feared. And so when they would have that, the messages come in, she would go in the other room.
Hmm. So it seems like, so in some ways, right, you honestly inherited those spiritual gifts from both sides of the family, right?
Primarily my mom's side. It's my grandmother, but both sides of
Okay.
her family.
Wow. Okay, so then back to the NDE, because I want to get to the second one, but with the first one, do you remember any changes? And also, how long did it take you to heal? You said with your head and your memory.
Um, I re I remember the spiritual aspect more than I remember my healing process.
Okay.
It was really hard to heal from the head injury,
Mm.
and my short-term memory was very frazzled. And I would say it took a good year for it to start coming together, and it was a very hard process. Um, Physically, I wasn't able to sleep, laying down for several months because fractured ribs take a long time to heal. And when you
Mm.
lie down, you can't breathe. And I'd shattered parts of my sternum, so
Oof.
it's not, it's very painful.
I'm so
And I didn't wanna acknowledge any neck injuries because they said, "You're probably going to need surgery," and I simply said, "Oh, no, not I'm not." I actually said, "That's not my those aren't my X-rays." I really just didn't want to acknowledge it. And when I would, go to sleep at night, I would look up and there would be this, I'm calling her an angel, but she looked like to me when I would look in later on in life, I would look in books or just statues. She looked like either Mother Mary or Bridget, Goddess Bridget, and she would be in the corner of my room, way up to the ceiling, like barely fitting in my room and looking at me. And when I was really sad, she would come down and just kiss my forehead and
wow.
then go back to the ceiling. Like, or to that corner where I'm saying ceiling because her head was she was so tall.
So big. Wow. Okay, so then share with us, when was it that you started to acknowledge, accept, and really understand your psychic medium gifts?
That wasn't until after my NDE in 2001, and, it brought back gifts that I had as a child, and then it heightened everything else, and it was to an extent that I couldn't push it out anymore. I couldn't just shove it away, and, um and it really dominated my life. I had trouble integrating that NDE, I felt very, very much distant from everyone in my life. It shifted my relationships. I didn't feel like I could relate to them because I didn't want to come back from that one. I stayed on the other side for a while. And it wasn't as long as anywhere near as long as how you were in your coma state, and that fascinates me. But I was
I like to overdo things. And I'll make you laugh, right? Because I've had, no exaggeration, Karen, I've had 13 surgeries, never spent the night in the hospital. I go in with this COVID and valley fever and fall into a coma on September 6th and went in August 29th. So it's the first time I'm ever spending the night in the hospital. And I just laugh because I'm like, go figure, Eric. Like, you're going to fall in a coma for 40 days, stay in the hospital for 85 days total. I didn't get back home from August 29th all the way to November 20th, right before Thanksgiving. So I was like, yeah, that's making up for the 13 surgeries. I was like, okay, I'll just spend the night here and get comfortable.
wow, wow.
You have to, like you just said, and I think that that's great therapy for both of us, but for everybody watching in the collective, right? You have to have joy. You have to laugh.
You
You have
do.
to love and have gratitude and just authentically be you. Like, hey, that's my experience. What can I do? So I want to find out, what was the second NDE though? What happened to you?
I had denied what was wrong with my neck for such a long time until I couldn't anymore. So there were some breaks there. And because I kept in shape, um, my muscles were holding everything in place until they couldn't. And so my arm was starting to curl up a lot. My husband was helping me in and out of the bed, in and out of different chairs, and it would affect the motion of my neck. And when I went to the doctor, and I went to just the top specialist, I got a really good referral because I didn't like what anybody else said. I wanted to hear what I wanted to hear.
Right.
And he was very tall, by the way. So I'm on the exam table. I'm sitting up. He puts up the X-rays, and he said, "You need to go into surgery now." And I told him the same thing I said to everyone else. That's not my X-rays. That's not my neck. And so I start to leave, and he starts to raise the table. So I'm at eye level.
Right. Okay. So let me share with everybody, because part of this I think plays into your astrology. Karen is the Cancer rising, Leo Sun, Aries Moon, and you're definitely fiery there. You're like, that's not mine. Like, like Aries Moon is like the childhood genius. It's like, no, that's not me. I'm fine. And the Leo's like, oh please, that I don't accept that. Like, so that is kind of, wow. That's really heavy. Okay, so then you're doing the X-rays, the table, and then what happens?
Um, he lowered it when I agreed. They booked the date for the following morning, and I actually left. He told me to wait there. I left, and I went and I told one of my friends at work, and he said, "Get out of here! What are you doing?" I told my husband, and so he drives me, back there. My parents went, my friend went. Some family members go, and I remember this was such an odd thing to do, but I originally had a do not resuscitate me. I don't want to be hooked up to anything. And about a half hour before the surgery, I said, I need to redo the paperwork.
Wow.
And so I redid the do not resuscitate me to resuscitate me.
Yeah.
And the anesthesiologist is doing, the IV, everything was fine. And just beforehand, he asked me, he said, do you have any questions or anything? And I can't believe I did this, but I looked at him. I don't know where it came from. I said, "You're going to kill me." And,
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I'm thinking in my head, why did I say that? What a thing to say. And then I followed it with, I painted my toes so I'd have something to look at after the surgery because I knew I wouldn't be able to move my neck. So I just, had my pedicure.
Karen. Oh my gosh. That's a Leo queen right there. I'm gonna have some pretty toes.
I bet I'm not gonna be able to look at anything else.
Wait. Okay, so getting back to the humor, and I feel like we've got some similarities here. Now, I don't have pretty toes, but I do have the nicest feet. And so when I was in coma and I awakened, all the nurses would come in and be like, Mr. Taylor, you have the nicest feet. And I was like, thank you so much. I was like, I take good care of them. I lotion them up all the time after each shower or bath. And I was like, this doesn't happen just by genes alone. I nurture and care for those feet. I was like, they are kind of big and flat, like I call them Barney Rubble feet. But but that's what every nurse came in like, Mr. Taylor, you have the best. And I just was honestly, as soon as I could awaken and then to give me the voice box to talk, I'm talking to them. I'm doing astrology readings in there, but everybody's talking about my feet. So
Oh,
good
that's
for you for taking care of those toes.
and they're soft. I always get told, "Oh my god, your feet are so soft." Thank you.
Well, then I guess we're both in good company. Oh my God. Okay, so you told him you're gonna kill me. You got the toes painted, and then what
And,
happened?
during the course of the surgery, it I guess ended up being a little more complicated, so I was under anesthetic for a longer time. I
Oh,
had a reaction to the anesthetic,
oh,
and I somewhere along the line, I started flatlining,
oof.
and, I flatlined a total of 7 times,
Oh my gosh.
and I remember hearing it. When I remember hearing the flatline, I was already in recovery. I don't know if they had moved me to an ER by that time, but I was in recovery at least. And what I remember of that time is the nurse sitting next to me, and he was holding my head and my face. And I thought, well, that's a little close. But, I went with it just because it just seemed very touchy. But he had such a nice, familiar voice.
Hmm.
And I remember them bringing my husband in the room and telling him, "What can you talk to her?" And and stuff, and I know they were working around me, and then I remember standing up, and it was me standing up, but it wasn't my body standing up,
Right.
and I looked over, and there were no I didn't see any walls. I didn't see any walls or doors. It was like I could see the whole floor. And I looked, and there was another man standing up, and I saw his body lying down, and I thought, "Oh, wow. I wonder if he's dead." And he was looking at me too.
Hmm.
And and then I was revived. I flatlined again, and I remember I couldn't breathe. I kept feeling like I was suffocating. It was really hard, and I hated that sensation.
Yeah.
And they told my husband that they needed him to leave the room, and I went under again. And then I went next to myself. I didn't recognize me. I never recognized my body. When I went next to me, I looked, and my first thought was, did they put a corpse next to me? Did they put me in the morgue? Where am I? And I was really insulted that there was a body next to me. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to another room. This is horrible, and I don't want to be here. And so I left the room. And then I thought, am I breathing? I'm not breathing. And I didn't open the door. I walked through it. And I walked down the hall or floated, however it was, and I went to the where I heard my mom's voice at the administration, and I could hear her yelling, just really giving the head nurse the business about wanting to know what was going on with her daughter right now, wanting to see her. I could see my husband standing up, pacing around. My dad was looking at my mom, yelling at the I think that it raised the roof over there. I could see another family member playing those little square video games at that time that they had, the mini ones. And one of my friends was there, and she was reading and just looking nervous. about what was going on.
And what year was this fourth NDE? You said
It was
2001?
it was 2000 it was July 3rd, 2001.
So this is right before 9/11. Wow, okay.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And then at that point, I left and I went through, I think what they describe as a tunnel. Everything got very dark, and then it got lighter. And, it didn't scare me being in the dark, it was very soothing. I was fascinated with how pain-free it was. I wasn't breathing, and I didn't feel any pain at all.
Mm,
And I just felt this warm, wonderful love, and it felt amazing. And then I was in this some sort of a vessel, and there were these beautiful, very, very large, tall beings behind me. They had these large, luminous eyes. They were just amazing. And I know they were talking to me. I know we were communicating. It wasn't verbally like how I'm talking to you now. It was all, uh, like
telepathic?
telepathic.
Yeah.
And, um, and it wasn't English. It was just another language, for lack of a better term. It was just but it was something I understood. It
Mm,
was it was it was very clear at the time, and we were going someplace else, and there was a cord around me. The cord was going back where I came from. And I was curious about the cord because I didn't understand why I had this cord around me. And I kinda touched it with one hand, and I looked at the tallest of these 3 entities, and then she looked at me, and I looked back again at this, it looked like this big island that we were going to, and I wanted to go there. I wanted to finish and go there, and I was thinking it looked like Avalon, that's what went through my head. And then I looked back at her again, and she pointed back to where my cord was, and I felt like I was yanked back in a split second, right back into my body.
wow.
And the same, uh, nurse, this man who was holding my head the whole time, was telling me, "You need to wake up. I need you to breathe. I need you to breathe." Um, there were people working around me. There was a doctor and another nurse working around me, but not talking to me, not paying attention necessarily to me, but the more the equipment and
Yeah.
me, not me personally. And and I told him I can't breathe, and I didn't know how I was able to tell him that, but I did. And he said, "Well, I need you to breathe." And I didn't want to. And it flatlined again. And he said, "I need you to come back." And I thought, gosh, why can't he just let go of my head? Why is he like all over here? And I did come back. Obviously, I came back, and he said, "I really, really need you to breathe, sweetie." And I said, "I need them to remove that body. I'm not happy about having a corpse next to me." And he said, "Sweetie, that's you. You need to open your eyes." And that startled me. And I opened my eyes. And I breathed and I said, "Please don't leave." And he said, "I'm gonna stay with you until they get you a room." And I said, "Okay." And so
So this nurse, wait a minute, because you just freaked me out with that. So the corpse that you didn't recognize before was actually you.
yes.
This nurse is not someone in the physical realm. This is like in the spiritual realm, this nurse, correct?
Yes, but he looked like he was in scrubs. I mean,
Yeah.
but the way he was holding me, I was thinking, "Well, are you allowed to do this? I mean, is this normal here?" But
It was an angel nurse.
it was an angel nurse, and then I kept saying, please don't leave." And he said, "I'm not gonna leave." So when I was transferred to a regular room in the hospital upstairs, I said, "Can you please either take me back down to the nurse or have him come up?" And he told me his name was Michael. And so I gave them the name, and they said, "Well, there was no male nurse on that floor, and there's no nurse here named Michael over during that shift. And of course, I argued with them because that's what I do.
That Aries mood is like, are you kidding me? There's a nurse here. You find him. I didn't even want this surgery. Oh
And
my
so
God.
I asked my husband, I said, "Can you please find the nurse that was in the room? You saw him. He was holding me during that time. You were in the room during the time. I described it." And he said, "You weren't conscious when I was in the room. I did see you open your eyes once, but how did you know I was in there?" And he also asked how I knew that the man down the hall died because he saw him being
Oh,
taken out, as in wheeled out. He was covered up, and he saw them rush in. Um, but he said there was no nurse in that corner with me.
wow. So, all right, now I have a question. This is just another thing to make us both laugh. Everybody's so tall to you. So, how tall are you?
Oh, I'm 5 feet.
Oh, okay. So that, I mean, I guess everybody, 5 feet, everybody would be.
But not everybody ducks when they go through a
No,
doorway.
no, no, no. I'm sure
Yes,
that
yeah,
those angels were
I
like
am
huge. And I
short.
was just wondering because I'm like, how tall is Karen? Because it seems like everybody's so tall to you. So
And they are.
they are. So okay,
They are. I mean,
now
if
I'm
they're
aware.
yeah, if they're over 11 years old, they're probably taller than me.
It reminds me of my boys measuring up to their grandma because my wife's mother is about 4'11", 5 feet, and I think they just all my 11-year-old twins just passed her recently. So yeah. Oh my gosh. So okay, wow. That gave me chills, and I relate because when I was in coma, I was able to, I guess we call it remote viewing. I was able to not, I guess, obviously see myself in the hospital room, but for example, my wife was there so much, I thought she got a job at the hospital.
Okay.
I actually saw the respiratory nurse, another nurse, and the manager of the hospital in while I was in coma, and then I met them in real life and realized that I had seen them while I was sleeping, while I
Wow.
was in coma.
Yeah.
And that kind of freaked me out because I didn't really understand it at first. And because for me, my experiences were more dark and negative, and I thought they were trying to kill me. When I saw like the respiratory, and she didn't come to work with me, the respiratory nurse or doctor. She came to work with my neighbor. But I'm looking at her and I'm like, wait a minute, I know her. And I'm like, she was the one that took away my oxygen when I was in coma trying to kill me. And
Oh,
so because I never associated, even after I had awakened, that coma land, that it wasn't real, like it was still so new for me. I thought she was coming back to finish the job and I got scared. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like it was really like the blending of two worlds it's because like everything was real for you, right?
It was very real for
Yeah.
me, and I know that the anesthesiologist didn't set out to do that, and yet I looked at him and I said I just had the sense ahead of time that something was gonna happen. I changed the paperwork, I looked at him, I said, "You're gonna kill me."
See, that's so fascinating. We didn't talk about this prior to, but we have all these connections because when they put me in the EMS truck on August 29th, I told my kids, don't cry. Daddy's going to be okay. And they're getting ready to close the doors and, drive me to the hospital. And I said to my wife and kids, this is August 29th. And I said, I'll see you in October. And my wife's like, what? Like, no. And I didn't wake, I saw my wife before I fell into a coma, but the kids weren't able to see me just through the phone. But I fell into coma September 6th, and I didn't wake up officially to October 16th. So I was right. I'll see you in October. So it's like we both were perceiving what was to come.
Yeah.
Do you have a way of explaining that?
I think that those are part of the gifts.
Mm,
And I think that all of us have the capability to develop them.
yes.
Um, but I think that some of us have it developed. And I also think that when you have a brush with death, and I believe that comas are also a brush with death. I mean, you go so deep in there
Oh
that
God.
you do get these, I'm calling them downloads, but you do get a download of I'm calling them gifts. You get a download of gifts, and then over the years they'll integrate. And from what I recall, you're still within a couple years of
Right. This is
this
just my third
very.
anniversary. Just I guess over a week ago, on the 16th of October, I awakened. So it was my third year anniversary of just awakening.
Yeah, and I love that you're calling it your anniversary. I call them my rebirthdays. I get a little cake, I put a candle in it.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. It's funny because I don't know how my immediate family, my wife and my four sons and mother-in-law, they acknowledge it with me and like, oh, when I talk about it, thank God you're alive. But I don't know what strangers or friends or family members on Facebook or whatever think about me or whatever in that. But like, I acknowledge these dates, right? September 6th when I fell into a coma, August 29th when I went into the hospital, October 13th when I awakened the first time and then they put restraints on me, and then October 16th when I awakened for good, and then when I came home November 20th. These dates will always be important to me because you can't go through something like what you and I went through and act like it didn't happen or forget. There is no forgetting.
There's no forgetting, even if you push it down, even if you suppress it, your body remembers it, your cells remember it, every part of you remembers it. It's just you not wanting to acknowledge it. And I understand what you're talking about. Not everybody in my life knows about it at all. Very few people in my life know about it. But when the pandemic hit, all of
Mhm.
a sudden I opened up to this new circle of friends where I connected with like-minded and who've had similar experiences. Some of them come on out of curiosity,
Mhm.
but it it just opened up this whole new world for me, so to speak, because now I could share without without walking on eggshells. And that opened up a lot too. And then I decided to let some other people in my life know and just let the chips fall where they may. And by that time, it didn't matter to me what they thought because
Yeah.
I already knew. I just feel like I have a knowing, and so if they don't agree with it, it's not something to argue. It's just that it's not their belief system.
Right, right. And I love the way that you look at that and you say that. And so, okay, how do you this is a big thought, and I want to try to be so concise because sometimes I ask these questions and I see myself in all these episodes and they're so long. But really, it's like how and when did you, after the final NDE, really integrate the psychic mediumship, and how do you work with your clients and stuff like that?
Um, I was very nervous after around people after after that last NDE. And the comedy continued, by the way, as far as different things that would happen and either the looks I would get or just my response to trying to cover it up, um, just because it seemed so unusual. And it started with the electrical coming back with a vengeance. It's almost like, "Oh, you didn't want to acknowledge me? Here it is." But in 2001, the technology really started climbing. And so cell phones were in, computers were in, the technology was just, for lack of a better term, exploding
Yeah.
and just continuing. And I went through computers like they were candy wrappers. They wouldn't sustain around me. And so I kept getting told, "Well, you're not using the right virus protection. You're doing something wrong." And I had people at work at some point who would ask me to leave the room when they were printing things out because they said, "For some reason, I don't know what it is, but when you came in here, the printer stopped, it jammed. And before you came in, everything was fine."
So
Uh,
they were acknowledging, so it was very real for them because they could actually see the difference in when it happened.
yes, yes.
Wow.
And my printer never worked. My
You
husband
remember?
would use it just fine, and then I would go to do something and it would jam, it would turn off, and, "Is it plugged in? Is it?" "Yes, yes, it's plugged in. It's on, the power's on, look." And it would be off. "I just turned it on, I swear I just turned it on."
Oh my
So
God.
it started with things like that. I don't know how much I spent on light bulbs.
So wait, you were affecting the light bulbs in your home? Would they just explode or would they just not work?
They would flicker,
Okay.
and so I thought, "Oh, they're going out," and I would change them. And they would start flickering, and I'm thinking, "Okay, this is a defective pack." And that went on for a while, and then I had different experiences where my husband's saying something, and I'm answering him, and he looked at me, and he would say, "I didn't say anything yet." "But how did you know that I was going to say that?"
Mm.
And I didn't know what to tell him. I said, "I just heard you say that." And I thought he was teasing me.
So you were able to read people's minds, right? So is that I know all the clairs, clairaudience, so that's what, claircognizant or clair, I get confused.
I know I get confused with it too.
Oh, these terms. So, but basically, I mean, you were just being able to read people's thoughts before that they would
I could
travel
hear
travel down and come out, right?
clairaudient. I could hear them.
Okay.
It's not constant, but I would have somebody in front of me in session. At that time, I was seeing people in session as a therapist. I was, a family therapist, and I was having to take notes because I was required to keep notes, and I would look at them, but I was also required to note. And when I would look down, sometimes I would continue to hear them talk and answer, and I was replying to the question. And I'd look up and I would have either a fearful face or just a question of, "How did you know that?" "Well, you just told me." "I didn't tell you."
Mm. So it was just becoming more and more evident in every aspect of your life.
Yeah.
And is this what made you stop the therapy and the psychology work?
Um, it started not to feel right, and I didn't know what was happening. It made me feel these types of things were making me feel very alienated from people.
Yeah.
So I wasn't feeling like, "Oh, I should do mediumship." And I didn't understand that term either. I was feeling like I need to back away from everything.
Oh,
And I enjoyed being a therapist, and I did do it for many years, and I loved working with the clients I had. And the ones that happened with, got very comfortable with me, and it started to be almost a comfort for some of them where they didn't have to say some things or they felt accepted. It wasn't a judgment. I didn't pass a judgment. I was more concerned with them passing a judgment.
right, right. So some of them were not fearful. They were like, "Oh God, she gets me on a deeper level."
Yes, yes. Um, I had one place that I was working at where I watched the one of the assistants come in, and her husband came in with her. She introduced me to her husband, but she didn't introduce me to the other man who walked in with her. And I thought, well, I wonder what's going on with that. Maybe they're in conflict, and that happened several times. And I finally asked her, why is it that you never introduced me to the other guy? And she said, what other guy? And I said, the one who comes in with you every day. And she was staring at me and she said, what does he look like? And I described him. And she said, you're not talking about my husband? I said, no, no, no. I know you introduced me to him. And I repeated his name. And then she took out a family picture and she said, do you see him here? And I said, yes, him. And he had passed away. He had passed away a couple years back.
And who was it?
It was a brother.
Wow.
And she then asked me to meet with her later and asked me if he had anything to say. That was the first time where I actually reached out and asked them if they had something to say.
Wow. And I bet that opened up a whole new next level experience that created the psychic mediumship, right? And
Yeah,
so then what happened? What did he like?
he had a lot to say. He filled in all sorts of information that she was looking for and that she wanted to hear, and it gave her closure. And it answered a lot of questions. It answered a lot of questions for
That's
her.
beautiful. So, okay, so share your information. You are a psychic medium, and I know you also play instruments and do therapy, sound
Um,
therapy.
I I'm my certificate is as a resident kinesiology instructor, and it's with Harp. Um, I work for the International Harp Therapy Program. I'm their program manager as well as their resident kinesiology instructor. What I do for them is I teach other harpists how to work in hospice care, how to work with pain management, how to bring down anxiety, how to work with other either groups or individuals in various settings, whether it's in wellness centers, whether it's in spas, whether it's in hospital settings, or hospice care. And then I personally enjoy working with wellness centers and in the metaphysical and also in the spiritual. That's kind of where my heart is with mediumship. I just love that. And I love doing guided imagery with harp. That's a favorite of mine. And I let spirit, I see where the words come in. I used to read scripts. When I was doing therapy, I would read scripts. And when I had my NDE as a child, they told me, if you want to talk to us, do it through this. And they showed me a picture of a harp. There was a harp on the other side. And
Wow.
so I would go and visit because they would have me go visit. Somebody would take me and go visit. There are these beautiful hands. I thought they were the hands of God, and they would take me to these other realms. And there was a harp there. And so I pointed this out to my mom because my grandmother had this picture of an orchestra. And so when I was able to, I got a harp. I got the Celtic harp, and then the car accident settlement, I got an orchestra harp. And
Oh my
before I started
God.
playing, I would speak to the soundboard, and I would hear a reply. And to this day, I still do speaking and prayers and my meditations through the soundboard, but I also play, and I get messages of what to do with my hands, how to play through that. So sometimes I look at somebody, I'll get their resonant tone, and that's through my training, but it's also through what I'm guided to do,
Mm,
and that's how I do a read.
that is so beautiful. Wow, you just gave me chills. Okay, wait, because that ties into some astrology. Okay, but share your information so if people want to connect with Miss Dr. Karen Michelle, they can, and then I'm going to go into the astrology. So share how people can contact you.
They can contact me through my email. I don't know if there's a way to.
Yeah. Oh no, just say it, and I'll put it. It will be in the description
Okay.
down below. Yeah.
It's C Sprite, SEASPRITE_KMS@yahoo.com. And then I also do sessions at Breathe in Woodland Hills, California.
Oh, okay. And what is that place? What do they do there?
They have all sorts of different offerings. They do past life regressions. They do massage. They do different wellness packages. They do yoga retreats and yoga on site. They
Wow. This is like a whole spiritual
well,
place.
it's so beautiful there.
That
They
sounds
also
awesome.
sound healings, and it's very beautiful there. It's a lovely, lovely, lovely place. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So this is like a cool, and I'm a lyricist, an MC, a rapper. So I love double entendres, and I just the similes, metaphors, all that. But double. So this one is really powerful because you have Uranus Pluto conjunction in Virgo in the third house, and also Venus. So not Venus's vehicles, but it's also music, art, culture, values, self worth, right? Love language, romance, all these things. But so they both, or all three, describe your car accident in the local community, but at the same time, it describes your spiritual and communication gifts, right? In terms of you using the harp and how you tune into people. The Uranus Pluto conjunction in Virgo, generational energy. And but when it's in Virgo, it's extremely healing because Virgo is the virgin, the humanitarian acts of service, and I think that it's really so beautiful because when we first had spoken and met, and you told me, and I brought up your chart, and I was just like, of course you play the harp and you do stuff like that because Venus is right there with the Uranus and Pluto, and so it's just lovely when in the natal birth chart, it is the map of your life and the remembrance of your soul. And when you can see these things and then how they play out in your life, it is so just magical and everything. And then you also have the Gemini North Node and Jupiter there, and you're in that annual perfection year now. So I wanted to ask you, how are your dreams, and how do you communicate in the spiritual realm during the day and also in your dreams?
Oh, I I really incorporated the spiritual realm into my life. I love being part of medium groups. I had my Resonant Kinesiology training in Iona, Scotland. I was sent there, so it was really beautiful. It was beyond my wildest dreams because I never imagined I would travel. And that's where I was asked to go, and I was sent there with 6 other harpists to be trained. And so that's where I got my certificate from, and that's such a beautiful, holy place. And then I had the opportunity to go to Lilydale this last July, and that was so, oh my goodness, that was so amazing to be
Well, now
surrounded.
wait, tell the audience what Lilydale is, because I know about it just because I saw a documentary on HBO. But please share that.
It is it is a whole community that it was established in the 1800s, and
Mm.
it's a spiritualist community. It's all mediums, and it's just beautiful. It's so beautiful, and to be submerged in that and to be there in person, it's otherworldly.
I
And that's the
so
feeling.
badly want to go. And where's it located? Is that upstate New York?
It it's just outside of, I think it's outside of Buffalo, New York. Is that I'm
Yeah, yeah, upstate. Yeah,
okay.
I'm from New York City, so yeah, that's way
Oh,
upstate. That's
it's quite beautiful, and I had the opportunity to go in the Healing Temple, and I was invited in with the a couple mediumship circles, which was just an amazing experience. And then I got booked to do reads in their auditorium, and it was so lovely, and it was so, I'm grateful that they to be welcomed like that. It was really lovely,
Well, that's
and
something to be really proud of, but I think it like I get chills just hearing you talk about it because when I watched the documentary, I told my wife, I was like, I gotta go there.
you gotta go.
I
I'll
gotta
go at the
go.
same time that you go. I'm very, very close friends with one of the women who has a long history there, and we met through Sean. I guess Sean has a nice way of bringing people together. Sean's a
He's
Hawaiian.
amazing. John is the best.
Yes, he really is. And I met Sean through Ions International.
Okay.
So, um, but yeah, he has a nice way of bringing people together, and the mediumship has really opened things up for me and really deepened my work with spirit, and
Mm,
and it's just made my connection and my whole integration around my NDE more meaningful, and also the way I work with resonance more meaningful. And so when I still call them downloads, but when I get downloads from NDE, and so here it is, this many years later, from
right.
2001 to now,
Yeah.
they're still coming in, and they're still integrating, and they're still blossoming.
See, and it's so funny that you say that because I'm only 3 years in, but that's how I envision the future, that it's not going to stop. It's going to keep beget, and still spill over and download and integrate because you can't the other night I was live on a podcast with my wife, and I actually, I was actually, on the October 16th celebrating I was doing other stuff, but I was also kind of talking about the third year anniversary of awakening. And I just asked her live on air. I was like, "Oh, was I snoring while I was in coma?" Because I didn't know. You know what I mean? I just, because I could tend to snore a bit, and she's like, "Oh, she doesn't mind it because that's never so bad. And if I get real loud, she'll just give me a little love tap or a little rub, and I stop." But and I just asked her because I didn't know. I said, "Was I snoring during coma?" And she was like, "No, you had a tube down your throat." And I'm like, "Oh wow." Like, yeah,
Oh,
like, because you know, people,
oh,
it's hard for people to fathom, but when you're out like that for so long and 40 days, you literally miss that amount of time of your life and then some. And so, yeah, I did see things on the other side. I mean, I never saw a moment of darkness, but I didn't actually see myself with like the tubes and stuff. I saw myself like alive and like active. Now there was times and vignettes when I was in a wheelchair or I couldn't move or do this and that, but I never saw myself with like the tube down my throat and kind of like totally out in coma. That I never saw. So it was a legitimate question. So I think it's beautiful that even today you are still integrating different gifts. So, okay, I don't think I've ever asked this to a psychic or a medium, but like, when or how do you even, I don't want to say scare, because I don't even believe in fear myself, and I don't know how you view fear and stuff like that, besides it being a low vibration and frequency. But do you ever surprise or shock yourself with different gifts or downloads or information that you get that could be for a client, your husband, yourself, or just anyone? Does it ever just blow Karen Michelle away?
yes. Yes, and I'm very careful in a group, as in if I get information and it's very personal where I feel like, this shouldn't, because if it's a group and we're doing a reading, people have come on for a read and it's in front of people, I don't want to say something that's so personal
Yeah.
that it's going to put them in tears, or that it wasn't quite what they thought they were going to hear, or that it would hurt them. And
Okay.
so I will wait and ask them to stay on,
Yeah.
and ask them if they would like to hear that, and let them know that I do not give personal information or something that I think would either embarrass them, humiliate them, or hurt them in front of people.
Right.
I keep everything very confidential.
Yeah.
And so these are things from being a therapist that I've carried on over. Everything's very confidential.
Right. Right.
Um, when I got information about my husband's mother after she passed away,
Right.
that blew me away. That was a big moment where that shocked me because I got information that I didn't know what to do with. I didn't know if my husband knew. He knew, by the way, but
Was
I
it you mean information prior to her passing?
no, it was afterwards. She
Oh,
started talking to me. I was sitting in the kitchen, I'm
oh,
looking at a wall, and she started talking to me, and I said, your mom's talking. I said her name, but I said, "Your mom's talking to me." Then this is in 2012. I said, "Do you wanna know what she's saying?" And he runs downstairs, and we were living someplace else, but he runs downstairs, and he said, "What?" And I'd said this before, so he knew I got information, but it was never quite that personal.
mm,
And he said, "What is she saying?" And I disclosed a lot of information that was really personal.
mm,
He knew about it, but he kept saying, "How did you know? How did you find out about that? What?" And then he started asking me, "What is her word for this person? What did she used to call that person?" As in, like, even derogatory terms.
right, 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 like, kinda like testing and quizzing you.
Me. She was just telling me, and she was an artist and a smoker, and so I was seeing her waving her cigarette around and drawing at the same time while she's
Oh my god.
it was very free flowing and it
So
had its comedy, but it was also where I was almost, afraid to say it, but I did.
well, okay, so 2 things with that. Do you feel in a way that that brought you and your husband closer together? And is he fully on board and accepting and understanding of all of your gifts?
He is now.
Okay.
He is now. He didn't believe the electrical at first. He thought that was a coincidence, and now it's just
It's too evident. I mean,
it's too it's too evident, and so when he works at home, it needs to be on the other side of the house and
separate from you.
separate from me, and if he's uploading stuff, if they're doing a podcast, if there's an interview, they let me know so I am either out of the house or on the other side, because if I walk by or if I'm anxious, it
Oh,
shuts it down. The
wow.
other thing that shuts it down is when I start laughing, and I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's extreme, emotions. So
So we'll shut down the gifts.
no, the electrical system.
Oh, wow.
That
Okay.
one I'm still learning about.
Yeah, I could imagine. Like, that's really fascinating. So, for yourself, do you still keep in contact or get visited by your grandfather?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. It's deepened my connection with family who have transitioned. And it's also
Mm,
changed my perception of what happens when we die, and even my use of the word death, as
yeah,
in I almost use it because it's socially how people talk
but
rather
it's
than
not.
a term that I want to use. Yeah.
Okay, so tell us what's your perception and understanding and knowledge of what happens when we transition? Because energy never dies. So I'm kind of curious because I for me, I came up and out of everything and I'm like, oh, because I died 3 times while I was in coma. Not like in real life,
Yes.
but just in the spiritual realm.
Mhm.
And after the first time, the second time I was shot and I realized I was like, oh, we have eternal light. Like we don't die. Like
Yes.
the soul, you know what I mean? So how do you view what are
Yeah,
your thoughts on death and what happens to us? How do you view that?
yeah, and so and I wasn't sure how to phrase it with you, and that was why I said brush with death, that you had a
Yeah.
multiple experience while you were in your coma state. So so that's my other term that I use interchangeably. But I believe that we transition out of this body. I do believe we need to take care of our bodies.
Oh,
So
yes.
just because this isn't permanent doesn't mean that we shouldn't keep it as healthy as we can. And I know that there are things that get out of control, and things come up, and we need to take care of them as best we can. But I believe that we transition into another way of being.
Right.
When I had the near-death experiences, they were all transitioning, and I was moved into another place. And what confirms my belief is when I reached out to other people, and it wasn't just 1 or 2 other people, there is thousands of people. Our stories are so similar.
Yeah.
The accounts are so similar. It's there's no way to deny it. So I believe the consciousness continues, and I'm saying consciousness, but it's our beings.
Yeah. Our soul.
So
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
still here, and maybe we're not here as it is here, but we are being. We are being.
So, what about, are you able or do you know how to tap into the Akashic records?
I'm learning about
Okay.
the Akashic records. I have met people who do them. We just did an Akashic healing, or had somebody come in on our Sunday group, and she
Okay.
was amazing. She does the light language codes
Yeah.
and speaks it, and she works with the Akashic records. And I had some that come up, so I'm learning how to integrate it. But I'm not. It's something I'm learning. So that's something that's coming up now.
Okay.
So yeah.
Well, the reason why I ask, because I'm kind of wondering your views on, you know, does a soul choose to incarnate again, or is it something that happens because we did not sort of complete the assignment or mission, that we were on, let's say, like in this present life? Like, what do you think about that cycle of reincarnation and the whole choice or non-choice, or like what brings us back or doesn't?
I am not sure what I believe with that. I don't know if it's our choice or if we are sent back to repeat things. I do know that with the communications that I have with some of my ancestry line,
Hmm.
they've been around for a long time. So they haven't incarnated unless your beings can split in such a way where
Yeah,
there's a multi way of communicating, and
that's what I
that's
was
something
wondering. Yeah.
to explore. So there's different possibilities. I'm not sure how I feel about or what I think about having the choice ahead of time that we choose the life we're born into, or is it something that we are born into and these are the experiences that we have and there's different roads in the path?
Yeah. See, and I think we definitely choose our parents and we choose the soul lessons to learn in this lifetime. But then once we get here and incarnate, we have free will.
Uh, that's what makes me wonder because I know we have free will. I believe we have free will. I also look around and there's people who I definitely meet eye contact with, or I walk by, or I'm in the room with, and I know that I met them before,
Yeah.
or I know that I am meant to be with them for something in the future.
Well, yeah, see, and that's interesting because that's how I felt like, honestly, when you were at the IAMS group with Sean, and it wasn't just that you zapped my phone. I was like, it was, I guess it's a resonance, it's a frequency, it's a vibration, it's energy. And it was familiar to me. And when you were speaking and just everything, I was like, okay, I've got to know who she is, and she's got to be on my podcast. It was like instant, you know what I mean? And for me, I, I know you don't know astrology that much, but I'm a Scorpio rising, so I'm very empathic, and I have Neptune, Jupiter, and Venus on the ascendant. But and then even after the NDE, right, increase in my intuition and spiritual gifts and all that. But the minute I meet someone through technology or in person, it's obviously stronger in person, but I can tell, my BS meter is strong, but I can tell, like, the intentions, like their heart, their soul, like I can like see through them energetically. And it was just such a beautiful energy that you like just emote out, and I'm not an aura seer per se, but it's just like, it's almost like I think of like an x-ray machine or a CAT scan, and I could just see through like if someone's got a good or bad heart or whatever. And that's why I joke, I tell people I'm kind of the extroverted introvert, because I'm very friendly and social, but sometimes I'm like, no, I don't want to be friendly and social with this person, because like I see who they really are, you know. And so I say all that to say that like instantly I was just like, whoa. And I said to Sean, who's that lady? Who's the Karen lady with the blonde? Like, who's she? I was like, I need to talk to her. And so it was so instant, and I just love that because I yeah, it's just magical. So okay, so what are you feeling now? We are going through a great shift, right? The end of the Piscean age to the age of Aquarius. We're going through great transformation. I explained to people Pluto's in Capricorn to November 19th. So I've been telling people, get your popcorn ready. This is the last time. So we're seeing all the structures and systems kind of crumble and dissipate. Political, financial, entertainment. The medical will happen more so after November 19th for the next 20 years when Pluto goes into Aquarius, because that deals with science, technology, innovation, all that. But what are you sensing in the spiritual realm with your psychic and medium gifts? And what messages of hope do you feel to share with the collective?
Well, with all that's going on, and I know that I look around and I do see a lot of turmoil. I see a lot of fear. I see a lot of anxiety around, and it's heightening right now because there are a lot of stressors. I also see a growing awareness and a draw to learn about the self, how interconnected we are, and how to reach out to each other to keep that connection going, which I view as a very positive sign. And I think the more we can stay connected, the more we can raise the energy, and that's a way we can also stay connected with our higher beings, our higher source, and with each other. And that brings about positive change. That brings about positive energy in our lives and ourselves, and also with each other. We all have these gifts. I know that we get different downloads and different things happen with the NDEs, but we all have the capabilities of intuition and insight and empath. We all have it in us. And when we reach out and we merge with each other and we raise the energy, whether it's over Zoom, whether it's over podcasts, in person is so amazing, but it's also so amazing to connect like this. The energy can still raise.
Yeah.
And to have more people, more of us interested in our higher selves, our spiritual beings, and to connect it to the grounded self and ground it into the earth and have it be a full, rounded, full bodied, right up to heavens, right into the earth. That's so beautiful. And you have that going right up to the heavens, right into the crystal core of the earth, and then you connect it all to each other.
Mm.
It's so strong and it's beautiful.
It is. I love that. Oh my gosh. That's so, you nailed it. It's so true, and I'm always optimistic, and I tell people, yeah, we're going through tough times, but it's going to be okay. But we all have our own individual responsibility. I said, don't take a day off. Do something of gratitude and spiritual discipline. Raise your vibration and frequency. Nobody has to be perfect, but I really don't think it's healthy or wise to just kind of, especially once you're aware and awakened, but to just kind of like sit on the sofa and Netflix and chill. No, like you have got to turn off the TV and the technology. You've got to go within. Mindfulness, quietness, stillness, prayer, meditation, toning, earthing, forest bathing, whatever, whatever.
Yes.
and take time,
Mhm.
to do it.
Yeah, and if you're not wanting to go and be with the trees or be by the water or it's not accessible, you can still reach out to either a friend, a group, or reach out to somebody. Here's a whole cast of people here. There's somebody to reach out to. I think that there's always somebody that to find, to reach out to connect with, to help with that. And I was laughing to myself when you're saying to turn off the TV, to turn off the technology, because for me, when I need to turn it off, it shuts it off for me. It's a forced event. I'm breathing deep during this, so and not wanting to wave my hands too much because I talk with my hands,
Oh my God.
so it
So
doesn't shut it down.
does that happen? Like you'll turn
Yeah.
off the TV, so you don't even use remote controls?
I do, and I've had it where I change the batteries a lot, and then I figured that, oh, it's okay. I'll just put the remote down, leave the room, take a couple deep breaths, come back in, do it again. And I've met a couple other people in groups where they said that didn't go away with them either, but it doesn't make it less annoying.
So can you go to the movie theater?
Can I what?
Can you go to the movie theater?
Um, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I figured I'd ask.
Oh, I haven't thought about that.
Yeah.
And I actually haven't been to, this is embarrassing. I haven't been to a movie theater in quite a while because
Yeah.
they have everything. You can stream everything.
Well, no, definitely. But I was just, because I mentioned this because I remember you said you shared a story with me, like shopping in the store, and you were messing up the swipe credit
Grocery
card machine,
store.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, that was about a month ago, I think, and that had never happened before. I don't know what type of setup they had, but that was a grocery store.
Wow.
And I was trying to pay, and all when I reached over, it wasn't just his that shut down, it was the whole line just turned off, and he gave me this look, and like he got scared and he took a step back, and then I got scared because I thought, "Oh my God, I scared. Why does he think it's me?" Uh, and and then he told me, "Just get out of here."
Oh my God. Oh, Karen, that is something else. Well, you know what? This has been so amazing, and well, before we wrap up, so I want you to obviously share your information again. What now? Can you help guide, or do you mentor or teach people who are interested in becoming mediums or psychics? Or
I am thinking about putting a class together. I would love to. And so if I can get some people together, I'll put together a class and do a mediumship development, how to develop your skills,
right?
and how to develop a way to meditate to really bring out that awareness. And I really think it's about opening up and bringing the awareness to yourself.
Yeah. So then for you, the meditation is very, very necessary and important. And do you have a recommended amount of time that you do per day, or just that it's done daily?
It's done daily. The reason I'm saying it that way is because if I say how much I meditate and somebody is out there who hasn't meditated before, a lot of times you start out with maybe a couple minutes
Right.
and then you build up to wherever it is you need to be.
Exactly. And it's different for everyone. Yeah.
It is different for everyone. I've had it where I needed to meditate for 5 minutes and then I go on. And then I've had it where I needed to meditate for an hour and a half. And
Yeah.
then I do it again at another part of the day. And my meditations aren't necessarily all being still.
Yeah.
I do meditation where it's about movement, it's about raising the energy, it's about connecting all the way around.
Well, and that's the thing that I was going to say actually for you with the Aries moon and the Leo sun. It's important for you to move the physical body. And I could see where for you, your gifts can be heightened with movement. And I could definitely see, because Uranus, Pluto, Venus in the third house in Virgo, it does rule movement in the local community, but also your hands. So I could see where when you move your hands, you could like zap out technology that's like quite literally with that. So it's all in your chart, my friend, and that's really amazing. Now, one other thing I thought about with that Jupiter North Node in Gemini in the 12th house, do you sense or feel when we have these collective earthquakes, hurricanes, wars in Palestine, Ukraine, and Lebanon, and Israel? Like, do you feel?
Is that okay to say on here?
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm not saying to talk about any sides, but do you just feel the pain or the sadness or like the violence or the destruction or the dying? Do you feel that?
I do. Sometimes I get a sense ahead of time that something's going to happen, and I can I have a knowing of around where it may happen,
Mm, yeah.
not necessarily the exact time,
Right, right.
and I'm not good with time zones. So I'll have a sense of where and a time range. But I do sense the pain,
Yeah.
and I also have a type of, I guess it's a remote viewing, but I also will sense if I'm doing a read for somebody and whoever it is passed on, maybe they were a smoker, I'll smell the smoke and
Mm,
taste I'll taste it. So sometimes I'll know if it was a pipe, if it was a bong, if it was a cigarette, literally, and it won't go away until I tell them. If
wow.
if the person had, lung problems, I'll get this weird congestion, and it'll happen in my throat, and so it diminishes my voice, and I need to tell them, and
And then
so
afterwards, it will kind of
it
come
will
back to
go
normal.
away. Mhm.
That's incredible. Now, do you ever see like I think about oh my God, like if there was a mysterious death, like can you see sometimes how relatives actually passed away?
Um, I'm always apprehensive about answering that because there's there's no way to verify it if they don't know and
Right.
I see it and I tell them what I see. I can tell them what I see, but if they don't have a way to verify it,
Then it's just
as
kind
far
of
as I can take it, yeah.
right. Wow. This is so, I could talk to you forever. This is amazing.
It's
So,
really
okay, as we say goodbye, I want you to share with the audience again. And what particular types of services do you do with people?
I do guided imageries. I do guided imageries with heart.
Okay.
And that's where I use the resonance. Within that, I do different types of exercises, and also I let people talk within that. So it's not about just being quiet
Mm,
during that. It's very interactive, and
wow.
I invite that, and I enjoy it being very interactive because it's about getting resolve. It's about being a healing presence.
Yeah.
And it's about being that for another and having that exchange.
Wow. That's wonderful. Okay. Share your information again, how people can reach Dr. Karen Michelle.
My email is csprite_KMS@yahoo.com.
That's wonderful. Well, my friend, this is uh oh, I mean, not that you're into this stuff, but have you seen anything around the election that we would even have one? I don't want you to get. I'm not asking, because I'm not political. I'm not saying like who you think would win, but do you see that we will even have one, or do you see any weirdness or chaos around it?
I'm willing to go on Sean's Hawaiian Islands for the election.
I want nothing to do with this stuff. Like it's really because for me, honestly, I'll tell you astrologically, November 3rd and 4th, Mars in Cancer is opposing Pluto in Capricorn, and that's a very explosive energy.
Oh, I didn't know that. I just see some I'm not wanting to be out and about.
Yeah,
For
yeah,
the days before and even the day of,
yeah.
I'm voting because I feel strongly about we have a voice and we're able to that is part of our free will. But I also see that it's so, emotionally charged.
Oh, yeah.
And, yeah, and so the last time I voted was when they had that was the first time I used the computerized. So of course, it's about sending it in because I already know
I
how
mean,
that
don't you go to the whole sites and shut down all the
'Cause that was a very funny experience, and I was laughing through it because I already knew about it ahead of time, but I didn't know that was what I was gonna be in front of, and so as soon as I looked at it, I started laughing, and I thought, "Oh, here we go," and
Oh my god. I can see, like, CNN reporting, "Well, this woman entered a" and they may think you're like a terrorist. Oh my god.
coming home from Lilydale, I set off the
Oh my
This
god.
I set off the alarms, and that was the first. It wasn't the first time I've set off the alarms, it was the first time they did a whatever they do to see if you were handling explosives. Um, um, what I'm wanting to say is, "Well, I'm just 5 feet tall, you have to let me through." I just wanna get out of this pancake.
Oh my god. Well, okay. So election day, Karen will be at home relaxing in meditation, and
I'll be
and
on I'll be on ions. Yeah, I wanna be with people who are raising the vibration.
yeah,
But yeah, I'm wanting to be very cautious about I'm actually saying 5 days leading up to, um, because I just, I feel like it's time to be very cautious.
yeah. But do you think that there will be an actual election?
I do. I'm
Okay.
not sure what that means.
Right, right. No, I know. For me, I'm like, yeah, you know what's so wild? I could fathom anything happening,
And
and that,
that's
and that's what's so weird for me. Nothing but surprise me.
it's yes, that's how I feel is nothing will surprise me, anything can happen. I think there will be an election. It's how it's the translation, everything that's coming out of it is where it's going. It's I'm not sure where I'm being so cautious with
No, no, it's totally okay. I love it. No. And I think that, and I tell people, like, for me, all I really just focus on is raising the vibration of love. I tend to feel that it, I don't think anything is going to change so much or be good or super good or super bad one way or the other.
yeah.
And I think, unfortunately, I think there's powers way above that are controlling anything anyway. So, for me, it's about just trying to raise the vibration and frequency of our entire planet so that, the bad characters, will dissipate and cannot be a part of anything anymore. And so that's what to me, I encourage everybody to love through spiritual discipline and send out the love and healing energy
You know,
because we need that.
no matter what happens in life, when things are put in front of you, around you, or as you move through the journey, you deal with it. Even making a choice to not do anything is dealing with it.
Yeah.
So as it comes closer, as it happens, we do have to deal with it. We're going to be dealing with it. So if it's acting with anger or aggression or it wasn't what you wanted, you're still dealing with it.
Yeah.
And it may be part of the problem if it's with aggression and anger because it's not going to change anything. So I'm agreeing with you. Bring in love, high vibration, ground, put your feet, picture roots growing like trees into the earth and bring the energy up. You can do both. Just have it all interconnected.
So this is interesting. I keep coming up with more questions before we end, but I just thought about this because no, because I always tell everybody, right? Spend time in nature.
Yeah.
Trees are sentient beings, and then you can get wisdom from them. And the Schumann resonance is helpful and healing for our bodies. But do you hear messages from plants and trees?
Yes. I when I focus on some of them, and I have favorite places that I go in nature, I actually see the beings open up and come out, not leave the tree, but just open their, I call it a portal.
Mm,
And other people may have different names, but I just see it open up and I see them come out. And in many cases it can be welcoming, or who are you? What's going on? What are you doing here? And sometimes it's just passing by and acknowledging each other.
wow. Yeah. Yeah. No, I find nature to be very comforting, spiritual, powerful. Yeah.
Yes.
That's beautiful.
But I do think that there's beings everywhere, and I do believe we're all interconnected and that we must respect them
Oh, yeah. The
and stand
animals,
with
the
us.
nature, the trees, all of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's powerful. Well, Dr. Karen Michelle, this was amazing. And I know it could be kind of weird with the technology, but in the new year, would you be willing to come back on and do this live with the audience?
I would be honored. I would absolutely love to. Thank you so much, Eric. I would
Okay.
love.
All right. So we'll set up a date in January to start off the new year. And I think that will be really exciting. And, I just thank you for coming on today. This was so much fun. And I know that we're going to connect way more in the future. And I look forward to it. So, everybody, make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe. Now, do you have any social media where people could follow you, or Facebook?
I do not. I'm just getting back out there as far as social media, so
That's
I'm looking to create it and see what works,
okay.
literally. So, yeah.
Well, listen, you guys know her email, and that's all right because I know that for you, it's you got a lot going on there, so I get that. So, but this has been episode 262 of my Knowledge is Love Astrology podcast. Please, not just like and subscribe to the channel, but share this episode. You don't know who this can touch. And I know that people will feel the energy and the vibration and the resonance of Dr. Karen Michelle. So definitely share because, hearts need to be touched. And, this is a great time, a great awakening, right? And to move into the fifth dimension, this is our time. We were born for this and we're built for this. So definitely share this podcast episode. And thank you again, Karen. This was awesome.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric.
All
Thank you.
right. Bye, everybody.